Hey everyone. So I wanted to take a little bit of time here to go over the reflective essay with you. You're going to be working on it this week and submitting it in week 10. So I want to go ahead and make sure that you guys fully understand what this essay is all about and what is expected of you. Go ahead and pull that up. All right. So second and final big assignment for this English 301 class is to create a well-developed essay that demonstrates your knowledge of critical thinking concepts and your reflection of how those concepts apply to you. The reflective essay is worth 30% of your overall grade, and I will be grading it using the critical thinking essay rubric that you can find under the Getting Started tab. It's the same rubric I used for the conspiracy theories essay. The essay is due the Tuesday of week 10. Tuesday of week 10. We're in week 9 right now. Week 10 starts on next Monday. It is due Tuesday. No late submissions will be accepted because I need time to grade your essays before final grades are due to be posted. So week 10 is a short week. Starts on Monday. And it ends Thursday night. The course ends for good Thursday night of week 10. Final grades for the class have to be posted by Friday afternoon. So I need time to grade your essay, right? So it's due Tuesday of week 10. But that's why we're starting the essay this week, right? So what is the purpose of this essay? Well, to put it simply, the essay is going to show me what you have learned throughout this term in critical thinking. You'll be discussing the basics of critical thinking skills, your own strengths and weaknesses when it comes to critical thinking skills, how critical thinking skills can and should be applied in your everyday life, and how you can apply critical thinking skills as a professional in the workplace. So it is an essay. You're going to need to begin with an introductory paragraph and thesis statement / controlling idea. The body of the essay will cover the topics I just mentioned, but we're going to go through them in more detail in just a moment. And you'll end with a concluding paragraph. The essay needs to be in APA format in terms of design, meaning page number up in the right-hand corner of your header, title page, section headings, double-spaced, correct font style and size, that sort of thing, right? So APA design. You are not required to use sources for this paper. It's not a research paper, right? Now, having said that, it is likely that you will be using information sort of straight from the textbook. And in that case, you will need to provide citations. So information that you're taking from the book, provide a citation for it in APA format. If you decide to use other outside sources, you'll obviously need to provide citations for any of that material as well. And if you're using information from the textbook and citing it, and or information from outside sources and citing it, you will then need to make sure you have a references page at the end of your paper. Okay? All right, so let's go a little bit more into what each section will require. So your introductory paragraph, remember the 3 jobs of an intro. You need to grab your reader's attention. You need to introduce your general topic, any background information needed, and lead us to your focused topic. Your focused topic should come in the form of your thesis statement, the last sentence of your intro. Your thesis statement should have your focus topic and your main points listed. Your main points will probably coincide with the section heading: critical thinking basics, critical thinking in everyday life, and critical thinking as a worker. You can use phrases like that to create your thesis statement, right? The first section in the body of the essay will be critical thinking basics. This is where you're going to demonstrate your knowledge of the basics covered in the first few weeks of the class, chapters 1 through 5. You're going to need to cover what is critical thinking, what are the characteristics of a good critical thinker, and which of those characteristics do you think you possess And which characteristics do you think you lack, and what can you do to acquire them? What are the common barriers to critical thinking? What barriers to critical thinking are you most likely to exhibit? How can you work on overcoming those barriers? What are the common cognitive and perceptual errors in thinking and common social errors and biases? Which of these errors and biases are you most likely to exhibit? How can you work on overcoming those errors and biases? You got to be real honest with yourself in this section, right? Same thing with this last little part. What are the common informal fallacies that many of us use or are prone to using? Which informal fallacies are you most likely to use in conversations or discussions or arguments? And how can you work on avoiding those fallacies, using the fallacies, right? So that whole first section around critical thinking basics, again, it's taking the knowledge from chapters 1 through 5, specifically 1, 4, and 5, and showing me you understand them, but then also applying them to yourself. And when you're applying them to yourself, that's when you're going to need to be honest. Be honest about what barriers to critical thinking you tend to throw up, right? What barriers are there? Be honest about the cognitive and perceptual errors that you're prone to, or the social errors and biases that you're prone to, the informal fallacies that you are prone to use when you are discussing an issue, right? Then we move on to section 2, critical thinking in everyday life. This kind of goes with chapters 9 through 11. So, why are critical thinking skills important when it comes to ethical and moral decision making? Describe 1 or 2 specific ways in which you can begin utilizing better critical thinking skills in your everyday life when making ethical and moral decisions. Why are critical thinking skills important when it comes to engaging with marketing and advertising? We're surrounded by it. Describe 1 or 2 specific ways in which you can begin utilizing better critical thinking skills in your everyday life when engaging with marketing and advertising. And then, next one, why are critical thinking skills important when it comes to mass media? Describe 1 or 2 specific ways in which you can begin utilizing better critical thinking skills in your everyday life when engaging with mass media. And then finally, why are critical thinking skills important when it comes to law and politics and living as a citizen in a representative democracy? Describe 1 or 2 specific ways in which you can begin utilizing better critical thinking skills in your everyday life when it comes to law and politics. Right? So this section up here on ethics and moral decision making, that comes from chapter 9. Marketing and advertising, that's chapter 10. Mass media is chapter 11. Law and politics is chapter 13. Right? In the next section, critical thinking as a worker. Right? Why are critical thinking skills important for the job you currently have or someday wish to have? How can you continue to gain, strengthen, and utilize your critical thinking skills on the job? Then you need a concluding paragraph. Remember what the 3 jobs are of a concluding paragraph and the 1 thing it should not do. You want to signal to the reader that the essay is drawing to a close, remind the reader of your focus topic and main ideas, leave the reader with a final thought, and do not introduce any new information. Then, of course, a references page if needed, right? And all through these sections up here, anytime you're using information coming from the book or any outside source, make sure you're providing citation. And then you sort of have some submission requirements here, just some reminders, you know, how everything should be properly formatted. Make sure you go through this list, okay? Very similar to the one that was at the book, you know, on the conspiracy theories essay, right? And then also just be aware that it will be ran through a plagiarism checker. I do it with every essay in every class, right? But everything that's highlighted here just kind of is a reminder of what would happen if it catches something. But this is all about you. So I highly doubt that anything like that will happen. I would think that the only reason that Any kind of plagiarism would be caught is if you are using outside sources at any given point in the essay and you have not cited it properly. Right? But again, you may not use any sources for this. You know, I mean, yeah, the knowledge is coming from the textbook, but unless you're taking sort of direct information from the textbook, you don't have to cite it. If you're going to quote something or, you know, take a specific example straight from the textbook, something like that. But if you're just referring to the knowledge that you gained throughout the term, you do not need to cite that every time. It's really just if you're going back to the book and saying, okay, what is this? And then I'm going to use that in my essay, that needs to be cited, right? But if you're just writing the essay or, you know, taking notes or writing an outline and you're like, okay, I remember this about informal fallacies. And it's from memory based on what you've learned in the term, that doesn't necessarily have to be cited, right? It's just if you're truly looking at the book while you're writing the essay. Or the PowerPoints, because the PowerPoints go along with the book, right? Okay, so that is what you need to be working on this week. All right, so you have the week 9 discussion, which, you know, you need to make sure that's completed by Sunday night. And then you have the reflective essay check-in assignment. And all that check-in assignment is doing is saying that you've watched this video and you've looked at the instructions for the reflective essay and that you understand what is expected of you and when it's due, right? So hopefully you understand the expectation. You can start thinking about how you want to approach this because a lot of it is reflective, right? So it's not only remembering what we've learned, but then really digging deep and applying those concepts to you, okay? So please start working on it sooner rather than later and reach out if you have any questions whatsoever.